Well, it's that time again. After much deliberation and a lot of people suggesting that we weren't going to get an Operation Summer at all this year, Gaijin have announced the Summer Landing event, and it's easy to see why they've called it that. 2 amphibious tanks, 2 ships, a carrier-borne strike aircraft, and the pride of Finland. Yeah, I'm not sure why on that last one either, but guys, be happy about this event, because Gaijin listened. The Summer Landings event, or let's just call it what it is, Operation Summer 2021, may go down as one of the best... nope. One of the most enjoyable, one of the least negative events in the last few years of War Thunder. Let's talk about why. First, let's talk about the sponsor of today's video, Surfshark VPN. Whether you're delving into archives to research classified military technology, managing accounts across social media, online stores and gaming platforms, or just trying to stream your favourite movies and TV shows, or let's say you want to watch a particular military tech video that's been blocked in your country, well, the troops need a VPN, and the one I used every day in fact is Surfshark. With just a couple of clicks I can bypass region locks and watch movies and series and access videos and websites blocked in any country, along with being notified if my information is ever found on untrustworthy websites. It's simple, fast, reliable, safe, and one of the top rated VPN providers in the world. Head to the link in the description below and use the code KOALA, and not only will you get a whopping 83% off your first month, but an additional 3 months absolutely free. That's 4 months of complete online security for less than the price of a cup of coffee. If you're nae happy or don't think it's for you, there's no muss, no fuss, because Surfshark gives you a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. So I highly recommend trying them out. I'm super happy with them. So thank you to them for supporting this channel, and now on with the video. So there are 2 reasons why this event is the best of any recently, and the first one has to do with the vehicles themselves, so let's get into them. To start out with, we have the VL Mersky 2, which is a domestically designed and built Finnish fighter coming as a rank 2 to the Swedish tree. The Mersky, or Storm, was designed in the lead up to the Winter War and first flew in the December of 1941. It proved a decent fighter design of the time, able to dogfight comprehensively against Soviet Yak-7s, and was armed with 4 heavy machine guns, a decent armament keeping in mind the American P-36 Hawks or Japanese Ki-43 and 44. Now, Gaijin actually appears to make a mistake here, calling the machine guns of the Mersky licensed versions of the Browning M250 cal. In reality, these were unlicensed copies, and they weren't the American M2s, though they do share many similarities, and are kind of an offshoot with a common ancestor. These are, in fact, the same 13.2mm guns found on many early Swedish fighters, rechambered for 12.7mm ammunition, which Finland was already producing for the Belgian Browning FN gun. This also isn't the only error in this devlog, and I had to get a screenshot of this in case Gaijin edited it. But this is the history section of the aircraft in the devlog, and notice where it talks about the production of Merskys not being continued. By the time batch production was completed, the flight and combat qualities of the fighter were no longer satisfied with the military. Surely you meant that the other way around. It makes it sound like the fighter itself wasn't happy with the Finnish Air Force it was supposed to serve with, like it said, nope, you guys suck. Interestingly, the Mersky 2 fought on both sides of the Second World War in Northern Europe, fighting against the Soviet Union while Finland was allied with Nazi Germany, but when peace settlements in 1944 demanded that Finland break ties with Germany and expel all German troops, the Mersky 2 flew against the Luftwaffe, or more specifically was used for recon missions against the Wehrmacht during what's known as the Lapland War. Next, we have the Japanese Type 3 Kachi, a disgusting looking amphibious tank we talked about in a recent leak list video, and the big brother of the existing Type 2 Kami. While the Kami was a great asset to the Imperial Japanese Navy, it lacked both protection and firepower, and so Japan turned to the successful Chihei medium tank to turn it amphibious too. What they ended up with was a tank that actually more resembled a ship with the pontoons added and the new cupola, becoming a massive vehicle with a crew of 7 men and a 47mm gun turret from the medium tank. In other words, this is a heavier LVT, and what looks interesting is that the devlog images show the tank with its pontoons both on and off. So this may come as a tank like the XM8 AGS, where modification in the hangar can either attach or remove the pontoons, something the Kami doesn't have yet. I can't see why you'd ever remove them, however, as they will likely catch a lot of shells at low PRs, and there is no way you're ever hiding such a massive profile anyway. Now, as always, I'm going to skip quickly over the naval stuff, with firstly the lower tier reward being the Italian Soldati class destroyer Aviere. This is a sister ship to the Corazziere already in game, and is one of the more significant members of the Soldati or Soldier class, engaging the famous British cruiser Ajax off the coast of Sicily. Ajax was the cruiser responsible for the destruction of Admiral Graf Spee. The second naval reward of this event is the German FAC, the Type 143 Bussard, sister ship to the Albatross in the German tree. Built in the 1970s, these ships were designed to carry Exocet missiles, which it obviously won't have functionally in-game, although you can see the telltale launcher tubes, as well as the Otto Melara 76mm gun, which we actually just touched on in a recent episode of Koala Explains over on the Armorcast channel. Go subscribe if you haven't. These are quite powerful ships, in fact one of the dominant forces of the coastal fleet, so if you've been considering giving naval a go, definitely go for this one. Now we arrive at the main higher tier rewards, starting out with the British banana, the Buccaneer S1. Obviously this is the precursor to the S2 variant seen at 9.3 in the British tech tray, and should feature all the same air-to-ground ordnance, making it a beast ground pounder, able to carry multiple bullpups and 1,000-pound bombs simultaneously, which most aircraft can't do, even though a lot should be able to. The way in which this variant differs from the S2 is in its use of the older and much lower powered de Havilland Gyron Jr. engines, and in its lack of AIM-9 sidewinders and countermeasures. While this is obviously a downgrade and led to a poor record for the S1 IRL, in War Thunder this will likely mean a lower BR, perhaps as low as 8.3, though I suspect 8.7 is more likely. This gives you the ability to use the S1 with the Chieftain Mark III or Mark V respectively, which I very much welcome. It also appears to bring in some new bombs, which are the era-appropriate bombs for British jets, more akin to the Mark 80 series of the Americans. The 1,000-pound bombs currently seen on all British jets are actually the wrong variants and were phased out of service during World War II, I believe. So it'll be nice if the Buccaneer does bring in these new ones. Keeping in mind that the Buccaneer S1 will be a slow aircraft and will have no defense capability whatsoever, yet carries a deadly arsenal of advanced weaponry, you can almost treat the S1 as a hint at what the A-10 Warthog will be like in War Thunder, as although the A-10 of course can defend itself with sidewinders, it'll be going up against fighters like the MiG-29 Fulcrum, with speeds of some 600 kph with ordnance, so it'll have to be extremely careful, just like the S1 will have to be against MiG-15s and Sabres. The final reward vehicle, the pièce de la résistance, is the itsy little BMD-4, which will add to your Russian Federation lineup, as this thing entered service in the mid-2000s. The BMD series was the little brother of the BMP in every way, and was designed for use by airborne forces. You can actually see it being airdropped in the poster for the event. Like the BMP-3, the BMD-4 features the 100mm heat-lobbing and ATGM firing gun, although this version features a much faster autoloader for the missiles than the BMP's apparently manually loaded missiles. Wow, they really got the intern to do the dev blogs for this one, didn't they? The BMP-3 also has an autoloader for its ATGMs. I don't know who wrote this or where they got their info from, but they're sadly mistaken. The thing is, the BMD-4 can only carry 4 of its ATGMs, which are the beam-riding Arcan tandem charge missiles from the BMP-3. You've got that 30mm autocannon as well, and the BMD-4 will also come with a thermal sight for the gunner, but unfortunately this is not the BMD-4M variant with the CITV. Mobility should be very high, as you'd expect from a vehicle weighing only 13 tons, and its power to weight ratio is a whopping 33 horsepower per ton, which is slightly higher than the HSTVL. The BMD-4 is a really interesting vehicle, and the Bakcha U turret it fits is a universal weapons platform, which was also applied to the BTR-90, meaning we could see that vehicle added quite easily in future, something I would definitely be keen on. Gaijin could then follow it up nicely with the Boomerang IFV, which has the same weapons as the BMP-2M but in an unmanned turret, So kind of an interesting play on the wheeled tank destroyers like the Striker, Red Panzer or Centauro. So what is it about these vehicles that makes them so good to have? I mean, while the Buccaneer might fill a nice hole, it's not much of a hole. I mean, the Seahawk and Scimitar exist and they're fantastic ground pounders with guns. While the BMD-4 might be a great, interesting little thing, it's really just a smaller BMP-3 with half the ATGM ammo. The two naval rewards for all two of you who care are just sister ships of existing vessels, and while the lower tier ones look funky and fun, will they really be that amazing? No. And that's kind of my point. Unlike in many previous events, what we're not getting in Summer Landing are signature or iconic / necessary vehicles that should have been added to the tech tree. All of these vehicles fit as one-time event rewards without taking away from the game for the sake of a cash grab. That is a good thing, as often Gaijin selects vehicles to be premiums or event rewards, which then can be added into the tech tree, that are super iconic or meta vehicles which many players need but miss out on. And either way, it does create gaps in tech trees which can easily be filled. These vehicles don't do that at all. The BMD series will be represented in the tech tree, Gaijin confirms that, and while it may not be the BMD-4 or even the BMD-4M with the Commander Thermal, so what? Even the BMD series as a whole it's cool to have, but it's unnecessary. Same goes for the Banana S1 or the Type 3 Ugly Duckling. It's unique because of what it is, but it's not like that type of vehicle is missing already, so who cares if you don't get it? These vehicles are all interesting platforms with unique histories and some different capabilities, but nothing that it hurts to miss out on, like the Puma or 251 variants which should have come to the German tree, the AEC which is missing from the British, or the MiG-21 PFM, which many Russian players wanted to see in the tree as it's one of the more significant variants of the fish bed. If Gaijin gave it its historical missiles, it would actually fill a noticeable gap as well. The EBRs also come to mind. We're now getting another one of them for the Battle Pass, which had multiple hundreds of units produced and was one of the more important French AFVs of the Cold War period, not in the French tech tree. And Italy has the Row 57, a similar situation again. Gaijin haven't done that this time, so even though you might call them lazy for the two ships and the British jet being a copy-paste, I more than welcome these vehicles being event rewards. I feel like that's what these things should be, unique variants or slight offshoots with their own unique history like the Mirsky or Aviary, curveballs like the BMD-4, or convenient hole fillers like the Buck, but not necessary ones. The standard response to this sort of thing seems to be along the lines of, oh, so I'm expected to grind for hours to complete these tasks and log in every day to keep my progress just for these things? And no you're not. The option is there if you want it. Nobody is expected to grind for these. These events aren't compulsory, they exist as a method of adding vehicles that wouldn't otherwise have a place, like the T-30 or the Object 279. Leopard C2 or Tisma. I've suggested in the past that the Argentine jet, the Polki 2, would make a great event jet for Germany as it was made by German designer Kurt Tank, but it would basically just be a German LA-15. The Japanese OH-1, a helicopter with no ground attack capability but armed purely for air-to-air, could also make another good option. These are the kinds of vehicles which only those actually interested in them should bother going for. Not cash grabs, not amazingly powerful vehicles which you need to have in your lineups and will end up selling for hundreds of dollars in the marketplace later on. Seriously, what kind of nut pays any more than $100 for any vehicle? They're not that good. It should also be noted that, as a lot of people have been asking for, these are some event vehicles going to minor nations. So another thing Gaijin have actually listened to the players on. Notice nothing American here, one German ship, no jet fighters, no main battle tanks. This is really good. But by far the best part of this event is that Gaijin have changed the tasks required. Now, most of them are still familiar, but the one that's missing, the important one, is that there is no longer a task to just cap a number of zones. That means no R3T20 spam! The insane spam of vehicles like the R3 was always one of the worst parts of these events, because those players took spawn points away from other team members, and because they're generally just grinding those tasks, they'd get killed as soon as they can to leave the game without respawning and hop into a new match. If you did, then you were being a dick, but it is also partially Gaijin's fault for failing to anticipate this exploitable task and almost encouraging you to do it. The fact that R3 players were capping zones early, getting themselves killed, and leaving the game having hogged all the SP meant that they had trashy KDs and terrible win rates because those actions hugely diminished the team's chances of winning. This allowed them to sit way too low in the BRs for way too long because Gaijin's infamous statistics-based balancing couldn't tell that there was anything wrong. This being fixed is one of the greatest little bits of news I could have hoped to see today. It means Gaijin actually did something they are infamously hated for not doing, listening to player feedback and fixing issues in their game. That's a very good thing, guys. This kind of thing reinvigorates my naive optimism that eventually feedback we leave can be heard and acted upon. And what I want you guys to do is, even if you're kinda salty that these event rewards aren't that amazing and mostly don't seem worth it to you, make sure Gaijin knows that they did something good here by not doing a cash grab and not creating super exploitable requirements that only harm the game. This is an enormous improvement on previous events. Make sure it sticks. And that's all for today. I hope you've enjoyed and that you'll let me know your thoughts on this event and this video in the comments section below. Are you going for any of these vehicles? Which ones? And why? My main suggestion would be that if you're not super impressed with any of these vehicles, and like I said, none of them are exceptional vehicles, just ignore this event. Only go for these if you specifically want these vehicles for the uniqueness or value that you place on them. Maybe you're a fan of funky little light tanks or enamored with the naval history of World War II. I feel like a lot of the discussion content in and around this game happens when negative issues need to be brought to light to expose problems and suggest fixes. So in this case, please make sure Gaijin sees a positive response because they have done a very positive thing here. And if these vehicles aren't for you, great. You don't need to take part in every event, maybe next time, but until then, there's a whole other game out there for you, and I'll be catching you on the battlefields. Right on the beat as well, dude. Fuck me, this is too much fun.